Edgar here with us, which is always our moderator here on these events. And then we also have Anthony Jones. He will have the chance to introduce himself in a little bit. Today, we will be talking about AI, personal data, and security, balancing innovation and protection. If you have any question, you can leave them on the chat section, or you can also raise your hand. We will take them. Once again, thanks for being here. And Edgar, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Gabby. Hello, everyone. So today's subject, I guess it's going to be really exciting. I guess starting from the title, right? We all, perhaps have seen in some movies about cybersecurity and that kind of stuff. And now we have the opportunity to see the real thing with Anthony. Plus, we will be talking about in this day and age of AI, how we can make a balance for our personal data and how that is involved in the security of an organization, but also our own security. So definitely excited to get started. That being said, I would like to thank Anthony for being here with us today. Thank you, Anthony. And over to you. Please, if you can help us with a quick introduction of yourself, and then we will start exploring some topics in this space.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thank you for allowing me to be here with you guys and to do this. This is an amazing opportunity. And I hope most of you guys on the East Coast are staying dry since the hurricane or tropical storm is coming up. So a little bit about myself. My name is Anthony Jones. I am a cyber threat intelligence analyst. I started out that way in the military, and going back before that, I was a regular intelligence analyst, all source. And what that means is I would take information from different sources, put them together into a nice package and give it to a commander or a director for them to make a decision, or at least give them an idea what the situation of what they're dealing with was going on. So I've been in cybersecurity for about 7 years. I've been largely in the intelligence space for 17. I got my start in the Virginia Air National Guard, and I supported cyber, just trying to figure out the intelligence part of it so they can look for the adversary or the threat actor or bad guy, if you will, on a network. And after that, everything just kind of took off. And I'm right now supporting a hospital remotely in Georgia called Wellstar Hospital Systems. And what I do is provide information to leadership so they can protect their perimeter, so their PHI, PII, and things of that nature doesn't get stolen from an adversary. So largely, I deal a lot with ransomware. And this topic of AI is really coming into play because I know a lot of hospital systems are wanting to get that AI feel, that's getting to that space for their patients. And there's a concern of how much information do we really want to give up? How much information do we want to turn over to AI to have that human-like interaction? Because it has to have some type of data to actually build their model on to get that dialogue going. So this is a really interesting topic. I'm really excited to be here. So yeah, let's dive in.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. So perhaps the first question that I would like to make today is, you mentioned ransomware. So perhaps could you describe what that is in more detail? Perhaps not everyone in the audience might be aware of that.
Oh, absolutely. So imagine somebody breaking into your house and stealing all of your stuff and leaving a note and saying, I will meet you at this location, at this time, this place, with your stuff, if you give me a certain amount of money. Now, imagine that all happening digitally. That is what ransomware is. And the way it happens typically in cyberspace, we start out with some type of something called a threat vector or a way in. And typically it's through phishing. And what that is I'll send you an email with a link. Hopefully you'll click on it, or hopefully you'll just kind of scroll over it. It'll download malware onto your system, or maliciousware onto your system. And then that way I'll navigate my way through, and I'll escalate my privileges to make sure I can get access to all your information. I will scramble it, or rather encrypt it. I'll leave you a nice little pretty note in your hard drive saying, hey, I've broken into your system. I have your information. It's locked down. And if you want me to unlock it, you have to pay me a certain amount of money. Now, there's no guarantee that if you pay me the money, I will, give you a key to unlock your stuff. So you're really taking the chance of, me being a, I guess, decent person, if you will, if I'm the bad guy, to give you the key to unlock your stuff. I've seen cases where, they'll pay, organizations will pay the ransom and they won't get the key back. Now, it's a bad model for a lot of threat actors that do that because if people know instinctively, okay, if I'm going to steal your stuff or lock down your stuff and I don't give you the key, then more than likely I'm not going to pay you because, I mean, there's a pattern there if you're not going to give me a key to unlock my stuff. So why should I pay you for something that I know historically you're not going to do? So
Mm.
ransomware is really a business. It's a business just like Google, just like Wells Fargo. It's it's big business, and we have to deal with that. It's getting more evolved, especially with AI, because there's a lot of stuff that the bad guys can do with it. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But in a nutshell, that's what it is.
All right. First of all, I loved your analogy just by thinking about somebody breaking into my house and, like taking all my stuff. I was already like really concerned about that, right? So I guess that's fantastic way to convey the concept. And you also mentioned these threat vectors, right? And I mean, I believe we may all be aware that whenever we receive a suspicious email, we shouldn't be clicking, like whatever link that is in there or opening attachments. But something that also caught my attention is that you mentioned that then by scrolling through the email, something may happen. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Oh,
Is it
absolutely.
real like that?
Yeah. So traditionally, a lot
Mhm.
of ransomware works the way, like if you start the entire attack cycle, the adversary will craft an email and make it look very legitimate, like it's coming from let's take a bank, for example. Your account has been locked or there's a issue with your banking information, say Wells Fargo, since I used that as an example before.
Mhm.
I craft the email and I'll put a link in that I can put ransomware and drop it into the email for you to click on. I'll send it to you and I can make it look 100% legit. And you're so busy doing whatever you're doing in your life, maybe you're shopping or maybe you're working, at your office and there's 100 things going on at once. And then the last thing you need is like an email saying, yeah, your account maybe, there's an issue with your bank account. So you're just going to click on it because you're not paying attention. And all the while when that happens is like I'm actually taking that opportunity for you clicking on the email to drop that information or that malware onto your system in order to get access, which is that threat vector or that way in. And if we go into the AI discussion right now, a lot of times adversaries will use AI to craft those emails because traditionally, a lot of emails are just really written badly, or, maybe there's a misspelled word here, or there's something there's a little bit hinky or a little bit
Mhm.
off. Well, you can use AI to actually craft the email to make it look really legitimate. You can make it look pretty with all the like little banners or whatever, and then give it to a person. And all the while they're like, doing the hygiene practice or the practice of trying to figure out whether it's legit or not. It's there's misspellings. Well, AI can take care of that. Is this a credible phone number or real phone number? AI can do that too, or you can just look that up. And once you build that out, you can drop that malware link in there, click on it, they can click on it, and then after that, they're off to the races. They can take all of your stuff. Um, that is a traditional way. Now, there are malware programs out there where you can literally scroll over the link and just by that simple action alone, it will activate the malware automatically. So it's even more dangerous right now, in terms of, how they deploy their information. I mean, it is very sophisticated, and we call those people or those groups advanced persistent threats because they are patient, they're skilled, they're motivated, and a lot of times the organizations are very large. They're not
Mhm.
the hackers that have the hoodies that sit in their mom's basement sitting there trying to get into NSA. No, these are like literally a business, like a business model. Um, So yeah, and like I said, with AI, it's making it a lot easier for them to do whatever it is they do. I know we had a discussion last week about
Mhm.
how things develop in that particular space where it took, I don't know, days to craft, basically email a certain way to make AI, craft email a certain way to make it look legitimate. It can be done in minutes now with AI, and even faster with the ransomware itself, and then to test and deploy it. So there's a lot of things you can do, a lot of dangers out there.
Right, absolutely. Actually, I was reading the other day about precisely people using AI, not only in this case to generate text, but actually to generate code, right? But in a malicious way, like actually trying to create malware that
Mhm.
they could deploy, and then given the speed, right, in which you can start creating maybe small things that are functional, but in the end work. That also kind of opens the space, for further development of this kind of cyber attacks, I guess.
100%.
Mm, yeah.
100%.
So, so I guess maybe like phrases from movies, right? With great power comes great responsibility, and that is something that um, I've seen happening lately. That we keep evolving our technologies,
Hmm.
yet we don't sit a little bit and think about what we are doing by doing that, right? Like we maybe are not conscious about all the implications or some of the implications that we are creating by evolving our software that fast. So, what's your opinion on that? What kind of actions could we take to perhaps start thinking that over a little bit more, or at least, make some reflections at home and say, maybe I should stop doing this or that so I can feel more or be actually more secure while, like using software.
Well, the biggest thing is I know a lot of end users, they aren't as, I don't want to say cyber savvy, but as spun up as we are on, tech, AI, IT. And you don't really have to be, but you just need to be really aware and careful. A lot of it is just, being careful about what you sign up for, keeping your digital footprint small. Because literally, I'm only on LinkedIn. I don't have Facebook. I don't have, TikTok or any of that stuff. Because I always look at it from the perspective, if it's not there, you can't hack it. But the concern that I have is the information that you put out there. Once it's in cyberspace, it's there, and that is a way for the adversary to get in. So if you're going to put some information out there, just really be cognizant of what you're doing with it, what you want to do with it, and the intent. And if it doesn't really need to be out there, then don't. And always trust but verify everything, right? If there's an email that comes through or something that seems a little bit off, it never hurts to like make a phone call to somebody and say, "Did you really send this to me?" Or did you, is this the intent? Do you even know what I'm talking about? And, making sure that everybody's aware. In cyber, sharing is caring. It really is, because it doesn't do you or me any good if I sit there and I keep the information about a attack to myself. I need to share the information openly and say, hey, this is what happened to me. I don't want this to happen to you. So I'm going to openly share my information with you just so you can protect yourself. Now, I get that there's legal holds and legalese that you have to adhere by, because there's proprietary information that you can't disclose. And I understand that, but when you do stuff like that and you keep it close to your chest or keep it secret like that, you're really weakening everybody else around you, you know?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
because of that, the adversary will take advantage of it and say, okay, well, I already know it's going to take a couple of days for them, or weeks in some cases, to disclose that information. And I'm going to take advantage of that by, attacking all these other organizations. So practicing those things, I think, will help a lot more. And then also, I guess since the adversary is using AI, we can also have the opportunity to use AI too. Like in my job,
mm,
my position, I use something called recorded future. And Recorded Future is a intelligence platform that takes data from all these different sources of information, puts it together, and gives it to me in a nice, complete package. I was actually using it this morning talking to AI, the AI program, asking about, oh, what's the latest, greatest attacks that's happened in the last, 30 days? And
Mhm.
literally, I asked it a question and then it gave me an answer. And then it had some suggestions like, have you thought about this and this and this? You can just
Mm.
click and go, click and go, click and go. And it has gave me an opportunity to set up alerts of my own to look for suspicious emails or look for suspicious attacks. So it's going from that, human on human attack. So you have the good guy, human versus the bad guy human, from bad AI, if you will, to good AI, and trying to, those two things fighting this way,
Mhm.
battling this way out. So it's amazing how it is evolving into that. But I guess on a user level, it's just being aware. It's really, really staying aware. That's really what it's about.
Okay. Um, Actually, what you mentioned about sharing, right? What happened to you, and then by doing that, actually helping other people. I think that really makes a lot of sense. And you also reminded me of something that I learned the hard way, right? I remember that we were working, like long time ago. I was still at the university, and we were working for a final project. I remember I was programming with my friends, all of us in the same room, right? And we were just working, and at the same time we had like our chat application open, and like sharing jokes and music and stuff. And then all of a sudden, one of us received one message, apparently from my friend that was sitting, across the room, right? Like right next to me. And then since we were just interchanging messages, didn't, we weren't careful enough to review what apparently he was sharing. So we clicked on it. And after we click on it, another of our friends that was also sitting there got the same message. So by the time we realized what happened, right? Our machines started, like shutting down, and then blue screens, and it was a nightmare because we were so close to, to deliver our final project. Luckily, I mean, and it was more by design. The system had like a recovery feature, and we managed to go back a little bit in time, so we could still recover a few things and go from there. But I remember the feeling, right? Like
Mhm.
of you losing the information that in that at that point was like critical for us, and then like all the angst and all those feelings, right? Even a bit guilty of having opened a link by not reviewing what was that beforehand. So I can relate to those kind of feelings. And going back to the groups, do you know if there are any kind of public groups where these kind of things get published, so we as citizen users can go and check what is happening, or have like a recurring piece of information that we can be reviewing as such?
Oh, absolutely. There's a ton of things out there. Um, if you have a long commute, like driving, and you want to listen to a really good guy, and I'm gonna go ahead and give him a plug. His name is Dr. Gerald Auger. He's on YouTube. He does the daily cyber threat brief. The thing I like about
Mhm.
him, he's a one-stop shop. He will give you the latest, greatest news of the day. He makes it fun. He makes it digestible. It's for all levels, whether you're new to cyber and you don't know what you're talking about, to the person who's a complete expert. It's about an hour, and he just introduces a ton of concepts, and he'll just explain them, like goes right down the middle, you know, talking about that. You have him. You also have some website, I think it's Dark Web Diaries, where the latest, greatest cyber threats will come out. And sometimes the technical speak gets a little bit high up there, but they do have it to where you can actually Google, and they'll break the information down a little bit more so you can understand it. Or you can go to Tech News. I think it's like Tech Check. MSNBC has Tech Check. every day. It's about a 5-minute clip, and you can listen to it and see like the latest, greatest stock prices, or you can see what the tax are, what the industry is talking about currently. So there's lots of information out there that you can use in order to stay just up and just understanding what's happening. And again, you don't have to be like a super duper techie or cyber guy to understand it, because a lot of these people break it down. I mean,
Hmm.
so yeah, I highly suggest, but Dr. Gerald Auger, like every day, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for about an hour. No, sorry, 9 o'clock every day, 5 days a week, Eastern Standard Time for about an hour. He will break everything down. So it's a plug to him. So listen to him, you'll be good to go.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of these valuable resources.
Yeah,
I'll
no worries.
definitely take a look. And I guess there's also like some sort of archive that we can go and check for other past chapters or things like that, just to know that we are not missing anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of GitHub repositories. There's a lot of the government does they have emails you can subscribe to where it can send you alerts every day about, potential attacks or maybe some vulnerabilities, or there could be some information as far as like, hey, software updates. So there's a big range and spectrum. It's the cybersecurity information oh my God, sharing agency or CISA, the CISA and DISA. There's also forums, there's platforms all over the place. Typically, if you just Google it, a ton of things will
Mhm.
come up, and you can just sign up and just say, hey, put me on a news list. You'll get emails every day, especially like, the latest, greatest stuff, like how CrowdStrike had their thing about a week ago, all over the news, all over social media, all over these different platforms. You can get the backstory about how it happened, what happened, who it affected, how that outage affected everybody. I mean, there's like a ton of information out there. You just have to like really just, Google it, and it's not really hard to find. It really isn't.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Now that you mentioned these things that go in the news, right, and maybe have this global impact, what happens behind the scenes? I mean, like for a professional that is working in cybersecurity, what is your reaction when you know about this news? What are like the first steps that you would have to take, to protect the people you are working for, to protect yourself in general? Could you tell us a bit more about that? How it really works behind the scenes, a
Oh,
little bit?
absolutely. So the first thing you have to understand is, are you vulnerable to whatever the threat is? So, for example, if there's a new, and we'll stick with malware. If there's a new malware out there that's affecting Windows systems of a certain version or type, the first thing you need to do is really understand your environment to see if you're even vulnerable to it. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't really know. It's kind of amazing how they put a bunch of money into cybersecurity, and then when you ask them, okay, so are we vulnerable? I think so. They get that kind of question there in their minds, like, yeah, I think we're not. Like, I need you to know, because
Mhm,
if we are vulnerable, we need to take action. So let's just say we are.
mhm,
First things first, we have to understand exactly what we're dealing with, like all the ins and outs of it. What does the malware do? How did they get in? What is the potential, as far as information being stolen, or maybe it's being, destroyed? Or where are they going to do? What are they going to do next? We have to understand that. Then, once that happens, we have to understand, okay, what are we going to do as an organization? What decisions will be made? Because the first thing that most cyber guys and tech people want to do is like, okay, we need to shut it down at the source, at the perimeter. Which, yes, it does make sense to do that, in that small of space. But you have to keep in mind that if you're a Fortune 500 company, you can't just shut everything down or turn off the internet because you have
mhm,
you have customers to serve. So there's got to be a like kind of a balance. Like, we have to stop the attack, but we have to keep the business running. So we have to have a little bit of, balancing of the scales here, if you will. So maybe we have to segment or cut off the network in a certain area that we know is infected to keep the rest of everything running. So decisions
Mhm.
at that level needs to be made. Also, some companies out there, they accept the risk. It's all about risk in cybersecurity. They may say, you know
Mhm.
what, we're going to lose maybe $1 million, but we make $10 billion, every 6 months or however the numbers work out. And it's like, well, we can afford to lose $1 million. Well, I mean, for us regular people, $1 million is a lot of money. But for them, they're like, okay, we'll just file an insurance claim. We'll get our cybersecurity team on top of like trying to stop the threat and sanitize and whatever, but we need to keep the business rolling. So
Mhm.
once that happens that's what's happening behind the scenes. Then you have legal actions that you have to take. So for instance, if they break into, your network and you're a Fortune 500 company, you serve customers, typically stakeholders and people who have stocks in the company. Depending on like the level of threat and how much money potentially they could lose, they have to alert their investors. They have to alert they have to alert the public. Now, they have certain rules about like how much money, and based on that amount of money, this is the time they have to do it. So like if it's below a certain threshold, maybe within 72 hours, maybe within a couple of weeks, and all the while they're trying to contain the threat, but the investors into that Fortune 500 company, like regular citizens, are being affected. So their PHI might be out on the dark web somewhere floating around. They don't know, but the company again has assumed the risk because they're thinking, okay, we're just, we have insurance. We'll throw money at it. We will reimburse you for the money that potentially you're losing. But if you get to think about it, you're losing a lot more because your information is out there. So not only are you uh, you know, you lost money on the front end from the company, the Fortune 500 company, which you're getting reimbursed. But think about
Mhm.
the other effects of it. I mean, you don't just deal with that company. Everybody banks, everybody shops, everybody goes online to get goods and services. All your stuff may be compromised. And that is something that in the
Oh, wow.
background we have to all
Mhm.
think about. And that's what's going on, when we see an incident that's happening within our organization. We're really trying to consider all that, the personal information, the ramifications, because it's far reaching than just what's happening right there within our organization. And
Mhm.
people very well could sue over that. So you could lose billions of dollars, stocks could go down. And it's like, well, I don't really trust that you're going to keep my information safe. Based on how you're casual about this because you're just losing $1 million. So that kind of stuff is what's happening in the background. There's a whole I'm glossing over a lot of it, but that's the broad strokes. There's a whole lot of other things happening there.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So I can see clearly that you have this skill really developed, right? To create these pictures out of these technical concepts, and I guess that is because what I can see is that maybe as part of your role, you really have to communicate clearly and most of the time in natural language to perhaps your managers or even people above that level, trying to convey, right, what are the possible threats and ramifications of that. So how important is it having a good degree of communication for your role in particular?
So I have to be extremely clear and intentional about everything that I do and everything that I say. And one word or lack thereof will change the entire context of a conversation.
Mhm.
So, and that's not just in the healthcare space. I'm in defense space also. So you're really, at the end of the day, trying to sway a person's opinion, trying to convince them that, okay, look, I need you to pay attention to what I'm saying. And more importantly, I need you to understand what I'm saying. So I have to practice. I have to make sure that all the information I have is accurate and make a decision to present that information to that person and get them to really, really understand. Even though I'm recommending action. I can't tell you that this is what you need to do, but I can strongly recommend. So with that, I have to be very, very intentional. I have to make sure that the information is relevant, accurate, and also, timely. Because in intelligence, old information or, dated information doesn't help anybody. If I'm talking about an attack that happened 3 years ago, trying to relate it to an attack happening here, there might not be any relevance there. Or
Mhm.
if there's something that's going to happen like in the next 10 minutes and I decided to wait, 8 minutes before I tell you, so you only have 2 minutes to react, that's probably not going to help you, right? So
Mhm.
I have to balance a lot of things when I'm building my briefing or even talking to people to tell them this is what you need to do. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of intention in what I say. And I'm
Of course.
clearly not afraid to talk to people. I may say it in a roundabout way, but I want to make sure that you have a clear picture of what I'm saying before you decide to leave my site and go off and make whatever decision you're about to do. Because ultimately that can come back on me if they say, well, Anthony said blah 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 blah. I'm like, yes, I did. However, I don't think that person caught everything I was saying. I said
Mm.
this, and this also.
Mhm.
Oh, and then it's like, okay. So that's why, again, that's why I keep reiterating and reiterating. And I know people are like, oh God, Anthony, I get it. I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure you really do get it because it could potentially have long-term ramifications if you don't understand.
Mhm. Okay.
I have
And
a question. Sorry to
sure,
interrupt.
Gabby.
Sure, sure.
Uh, Going back to AI a little bit, um, how can we use AI to identify and mitigate potential security threats, like in real time? Is it possible?
Yes, it is. And it's all dependent on one, the skill level of the person using AI. Because some people will get the software, they'll start asking questions, which is great. But I don't know if you guys ever dealt with this. Like you get some, nice new tool, but there's no training involved. And it's like, okay, well, you got the AI tool, you got everything you need, go to town. Like, great, but is there any training about this? I mean, I know I can ask it questions, but the AI is only as good as the person that's using it. So I can ask it 100 questions, but the thing is, I may not be asking the right question or utilizing it in a way that's at its fullest potential. So, to get to your question or to answer your question, you can use it in such a way where you can set up, alerts, watch lists, meaning like, okay, I need you to watch out for these couple of things like phishing and malware and scams and things like that. If I tune it the right way, or I give it access to enough information, which that could be a double-edged sword, depending on how you look at it. And if I set it up just right, yeah, I can have a very robust defense using AI. But again, it all depends on the skill of the person using it. It depends
Right.
on how much information you're willing to give to the AI and a couple of other factors.
Got it. And then on the other side, what are some best practices for balancing the benefits of using AI, but also the need to protect your personal data?
Right. See, that's where I struggle to
Right.
really, that's where I struggle with the answer because AI, in order to get that human feel to it where you're going back and forth, you have to allow it access to a lot of data, a lot of personal data in some cases, in order to really get to know your situation. And let's just take healthcare, for example. If I wanted to use it in healthcare and I wanted to be able to talk to me on a personal level about some like medical conditions that's going on with me, I have to allow it to an extent access to all of my information, right? Or very close to all of my information. It's about how comfortable I am with that. Because when you're trying to make it, a human type interaction, it needs it, correct. However, from an intelligence standpoint, I see that as a way the adversary can use and exploit that way in to AI to get my information, to be able to use that as leverage to get money from me, like a ransomware attack or an attack to extort money from me. So yeah, it's a tough question, like to how to try to balance it. You really honestly have to know what it's going to do in the background. And a lot of people, a lot of users don't. They might say, hey, we're going to use AI to give that interaction with you. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but how much information am I giving you in order to do that? And also, what are you doing to protect it? Is there safeguards in place to make sure that somebody can't compromise that information? Because I can tell you in the healthcare space, before AI even came into play, there are a lot of hospitals that aren't up to par when it comes to the cybersecurity. I mean, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I think we saw a couple of weeks ago and probably a couple of months ago how this one large healthcare organization didn't have MFA set up, and there's a lot of information that was exposed. And I think they probably was trying to use AI, and I can't quote on that, but if they don't have the protections in place and you're throwing a lot of data at AI, the information is just sitting out there waiting to be taken or exploited. So trying to balance those two things together is tough. I mean, you really have to understand what it's doing, and the person that's running the AI in the organization really has to have their safeguards on point in order to protect that information. So that's a tough question.
No, yeah, and I definitely get it. So my last question about AI, how do you like foresee the evolution of AI impacting personal data security, like in the next, let's say, 5 years, 10 years?
Right. Okay, so I think my feeling on that AI it's going to grow. It's not going away. I mean, keep in mind that we're not even 2 years in and everybody's just,
Right.
bonkers about it, which is just fine. But I think what's going to happen is AI is going to be a lot more intrusive in the personal information, in that it's going to need more and more and more data to build that connection with the person using it. So as far as personal information, it's going to be a lot more intrusive. It's going to be a lot more intentional with asking for that information. And how we sign off on stuff like waivers, like when we have HIPAA forms when we go to the hospital or a doctor and say, hey, you're asking you, by signing this, you're allowing us to release your information to whatever organization to take care of you with the intention of utilizing all of the resources at their disposal to help you. Now, the end user may not realize that AI might be one of those things. So you might be signing off on, oh, well, okay, at the time I'm just looking to get, to get some get help from the hospital or a healthcare provider, but I didn't realize I was giving AI my entire all of my information, my entire data set. So I think it's gonna get a lot more intrusive. And I think a lot of people need to be aware of it. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to, after a while, even opt out of it. I mean, I really don't, because it's going to make life easier for doctors and nurses and everything like that. So with that, you may not have a choice but to sign off and say, okay, I'm going to give you that information. But I would be really interested to see what kind of laws are going to be in place to say, okay, how are we going to regulate this? And that's why I end up having a problem, like unregulated use of AI. So how are we going to regulate the balance of all this information that we need in order to do our thing in healthcare versus what the person feels comfortable with? Because AI is going to need it, right?
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yes, I've got.
Yeah, I mean, so much value in everything that you covered with these questions that Gabby made. Thank you, Gabby.
Yeah, no worries.
Thanks, Anthony. Actually, well, first of all, something that you mentioned, right, about signing off for, pretty much, I would say, every service. We tend to not read terms and conditions so thoroughly or carefully, I would say, right? Sometimes they are just check boxes that we just tick and go.
But also because they
and
make it like 20 pages long.
Yeah,
No one
yeah,
wants
that's
to
also
read
true.
that.
that, and they also make it really enticing on the end for the end user. It's like, oh yeah, like I don't even know what program this is, but it could take your face and make you look 20 years younger.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, the end user's thinking, oh wow, it's gonna make me look prettier. It's gonna make my filters
Mhm.
look better. And I'm like, you do realize you're allowing that program to access to your face and your
Right.
features, thus negating biometrics, because biometrics is set up in a way where, okay, I can unlock my phone with my face or whatever. You're allowing it. You're giving it information that, if you really thought about it, you shouldn't, because you're trying to get to the end result of I have to have a better picture on Facebook. You do realize that,
Right.
Mhm.
most people don't. And I don't want to read, and I just want to get the result. Give it to me right now. And that's what they're thinking. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing that you also mentioned that I believe it's also really close related to this is how we are giving away this information, right? I guess there was like a lot of things happening around the tracking, for example, that big companies were doing for our internet usage, right? And then there were laws that came, and then it was like you cannot be tracking your users like that. But now, what I can see is that with these AI models, right? Maybe they don't even need to track you know, our patterns anymore because pretty much we would be giving away the same information or even more about ourselves. And we don't really know what happens on the other side, right? Like how, as you were mentioning, how they are storing this information, if they are protecting it or not, and what they are doing with it besides training their models. So, I mean, the risk, I believe, it's still there, and I guess it's always a matter of how fast the laws can, evolve and cover things. One bad example of that is here in Mexico. I read the other day that they passed a law that regulated something related to the radio. I mean, it was specific to the radio, and they just passed that law. I mean, like pretty much here in Mexico, nobody hears the radio anymore, you know. But they were, like really focusing on that, and it was like how can like the laws, the government catch up with the speed of how things are evolving on the other side. So maybe they should also be thinking about using some kind of AI to try to catch up or something. I don't know, but
Yeah,
it
that's
was really
tough.
shocking.
It's tough because I don't think there's enough laws out there to regulate the use of AI. I don't think there's enough laws out there to really regulate the use of like how people use the internet. You give a bunch of free tools to a person. I mean, it's great that it's free, but I, with the freedom of those tools comes also the opportunity to exploit that tool for something that's not great. And there's not a lot of laws out there to protect you. Like I could take your likeness right now and use it however I see fit, as long as I don't do anything too crazy with it. But did I give
Mhm.
consent? And I guess, when you use the internet, you're, I guess, literally giving consent to take that information and do whatever you want with it. But the issue I have with AI when I'm talking about the unregulated usage of it is like you have, you know, threat actors out there that's building those malwares, that's building that phishing email, that's taking that information and testing it to improve their attacks. And I'm like, okay, but you realize that that information that you're giving out for free is using to extort money from innocent, hardworking people, right?
Mhm.
So I think we need to regulate a little bit more. But then it comes into the fact of, well, you're impacting my freedom. So it's kind of like you got to balance the good with the bad. And it's like, how do you do that? Like, really, how do you do that? And I think
Mhm.
lawmakers don't really fully grasp like the internet and online well enough, and the law can't keep up with the internet. Let's just be honest with it. There's always something new coming out, even as we are talking, that
Mhm.
it's going to take lawmakers years just to even like make a law with stuff that we're talking about right now. So it's outpacing by exponential means and bounds. The internet's outpacing the laws that needs to be written to regulate what's going on. So I mean, again, how do you balance that? You can't. You just have to do the best you can. Um, and what does the best look
Mhm.
like? That's a good question. I mean, try to keep your footprint small, try not to put things on the internet, try not to use the internet. I
Mhm.
mean, I can't see people nowadays not using the internet for anything, right? So I guess you just have to like look at it from the perspective of like how much risk am I willing to accept, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Correct. Well, I can see that time just flew by
Oh,
as we were having fun, you know. But I am loving this conversation. I would definitely love to have the opportunity to talk again. And there are, like a bunch of questions that I have there, like noted down, and that I would like to discuss and have more points of view from you, Anthony. Um, so before we leave, right? What would be, let's say, what would be the top three actions that you can recommend our audience so they can be be safer, more safe when they are, like navigating the web and in general in their lives? What would be these top three recommendations that you would have for them?
sure. Be really aware where you're going on the internet, because that one link, that one click could be a matter of whether your information is stolen or not. So just be really, really aware of that because a lot of people come up to me all the time. It's like, oh man, my stuff is encrypted. Is there anything you can do to get it back? I'm like, do you have backups? And that's where it goes into number two. Having backups, I have an external hard drive that I keep all of the information that I want to keep. So at least once a week, I'll plug it into one of my systems and I have everything kind of like, linked together. I'll back the information up. I keep it in my desk drawer and, in case, knock on wood, God forbid that my information gets encrypted, I'm not having to pay money to some cyber threat actor out there to get it back. It's like I have a copy. So have copies. And then
Mhm.
number three, just really stay aware and educating yourself. Just, I don't have to get a PhD in this, but just be aware on what's happening in the news and what regulations that lawmakers are coming out with, because a lot of people just don't know. They really just don't know. Um,
Mhm.
And it's important in that if somebody takes your likeness or some type of feature and they're using it and making money off of it or doing something bad with it, the first thing you're going to want to do is take action, but there might not be any actions you can take. So maybe that'll start a conversation with your local law office or governor or whoever to say, I'm not okay with this. We need to like have a law that says that that person can't do this. I get that the internet is outpacing laws, but at the very least, you can start warning people and telling them, okay, based on the information you're putting out there, you really, your face, your likeness, your voice may be out there on the internet and they may be using it for whatever they want to use it for. So just be really, really careful of what you put out there. So I think those three things are the most um, important things to keep in mind when you're just navigating the internet. If I had to put a fourth thing on there, keep your digital footprint small. Like I said, I don't have Facebook. I don't have Instagram, all that stuff. I have LinkedIn, and I'm very, very
Mhm.
careful about my LinkedIn profile. So that's all I need. Rest of it I can deal with like outside of that. But yeah, just be careful.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Anthony. I am a bit anxious now, so I'm not sure if one hard disk copy would be enough, but but
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah, there's good and bad with the internet. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like you're just the internet's some bad part of town you should never go in. Like, no, no, there's
Mhm.
really great places and spaces on the internet. It's just you just have to be really careful about how you get to those great places and spaces. I mean, you're going to go down maybe a street that may not be great, and you might want to stop and take a look. And you're like, no, no, let's just keep it moving, you know? So just
Hmm.
as you're transversing the internet, keep that in mind. So it's not all bad. It's just there are people out there that will try to scam you. You need to be aware.
Hmm. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for today. It really was fantastic, and it was so enjoyable to talk with you. So I really hope we have the opportunity to have another round. Gabby or Anthony, any closing comments? Sorry, that you have.
I loved
No,
it.
I just want to,
Oh,
I,
please
I
go.
actually want to thank Anthony for replying to me on LinkedIn. Like, no, I wasn't suspicious. And that takes us to here. And I'm actually as well very, very grateful for your all the insights that you gave us today, all the information. We actually have Anthony scheduled for another Tech Social on September 26th. So on a different topic, but we will have him back. So that's great. So thank you again, Anthony. And yes, I'll leave you to the audience if you have any closing comment.
Absolutely. Well, I love this, and I'm very excited on coming back next month and doing this again and sharing information. I love to help. I love to assist. I'm on LinkedIn, like I said, Anthony L. Jones. I think I have MS after my name. So if you want to connect with me, please do it there. And if you want to talk about cybersecurity, if you want to talk about, trying to break into cyber and break into cybersecurity, I've helped a lot of people. I can give you some resources or point you in a direction. Because when I first came in, I didn't have anybody to really tell me what I needed to do. I had to figure it all by myself. And I don't want people to struggle. So if I can help, that's what I'm going to do. But yeah, just hit me up on LinkedIn and we can just go from there.
Great. Thank you so much for that as well. All right. Thank you so much, Anthony. And thank you, everyone. We'll see you again next week. And as I said, Anthony will be back next month. So I hope to see you all here one more time. Thank you and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Amazing. Thank you very much. See you guys. That was fantastic. Thank you, Anthony.
No worries. Thank you. Anytime you guys want to come back or you want me to come back, I am more than willing. I know I'm coming back next month, but